When it comes to drifting, the most commonly spread piece of bad advice that I see is not to use your handbrake. When I got into drifting and when I started building my drift car, I took this very seriously. Because of this, I chose to keep the stock cable handbrake in my drift car and to run Z32 drum brakes. This was because I didn't like the way the stock handbrake felt with the pull-up. I would much prefer like the pullback style. I figured if I left my handbrake in an orientation that wasn't really comfortable to me, it would make me use it less. On my sim, I modified my handbrake into a pull-up as well. But after almost 1,000 hours on the sim, I've actually come to really become comfortable with the pull-up style and much prefer it. With my Z32 stuff, I had the cables as tight as possible. I had everything adjusted to make it as good as possible, but when I took my car out, it just really did not work at all. I know there's people who have better luck with it, but it just really didn't work for me. It could be that I have big heavy 3-piece VSKFs. I recently put Project Moose shoes in, but I found that the OEM shoes actually worked better. Having a handbrake that works well and consistently is super important in a drift car, especially when tandeming. There are two different styles of drifting. You have your American style and your Japanese style. With the Japanese style, you want to go as fast as possible. There are some Japanese tracks and street spots that do manji or senpatsu 3-motion, but for the most part, if there's a straight, they will grip up and go as fast as possible. They will do a big initiation and use angle to slow the car down and scrub speed off. Handbrake is really important for adjusting your line. There's good ways and bad ways to use a handbrake. For example, a good way to use it is to extend your line so you can make it around a corner that you might otherwise come up short on, or to get a better flick. For example, on a feint initiation, you can pull it on the flick and that'll actually give the car more momentum and float it, and I love how that looks. And that gives you a bigger, more stylish entry. You can also use that on transitions too. I'll put a couple clips in just to kind of show you, but that is like a Japanese style.
角度をつけて入ってくる、ちょっと小さい状態か、しかしここは綺麗に持ってくる、スーッと飛ばしてくるところを、さあここもスピードの高い状態で 300R をぶっ飛んでくる、さあ綺麗なラインで振り返していい状況で持ってったぞ。さあチーム東洋ドリフト 180 川端のさあ豪快な 300R パキッとつけていいラインでスーッと立ち上がっていくところ、煙とともにいった川端逆転。
Whereas what's known more as the American style is, say there's like a straight like halfway through the layout that you're drifting, like on a road course maybe, where the Japanese will grip up and go as fast as possible and do a really gangster entry. The Americans will kind of just ride at the top of the gear, kind of wait for the corner to come up, and then they'll just and then they'll use the handbrake to like scrub their speed off, and it doesn't look very good. I feel like handbrake orientation, like the pullback style or the pull-up style, kind of plays a factor into your driving style. I think having the handbrake conveniently, like right here, kind of makes you want to use it more when you really shouldn't be, whereas this kind of is more of like gives you more sauce on your transitions and your entries. When you're tandeming and you're close to someone, you don't really want to be using the handbrake to hold the car back. That's where you want to be left foot braking. It's jerky and it doesn't look good. I feel like having that convenient pullback style right next to the steering wheel kind of contributes to that. It's right there, so it makes you want to use it as much as you can. There is a right way and a wrong way to use a handbrake. The only times you should really be using the handbrake in a tandem, aside from like coming into a corner and trying to scrub your speed off, is you're kind of on too tight of a line on the car that you're chasing. It's nice to be able to pull the handbrake and kind of like drop the car back and put it back on the same line as the car you're chasing. Or if you're really on someone and you go to transition, you can either just clutch in, or you can handbrake to kind of hold the car back so that your front bumper doesn't hit their back bumper. That's another way that works. But my point is, a handbrake is a very, very important tool, and I don't really understand why people say that you should not drive with it, because you need it to adjust your line. Clearly this is something that I've thought a lot about and I've played around with a lot on the sim to really figure out what is right and wrong. I'll put in a Mihan clip on a Seto of me doing an initiation on the wall with no handbrake and one with handbrake, and I'll let you tell me what you think looks better. The car drifts on an axis. And if you don't use your handbrake, your car is pretty much limited to that radius. And that's where the handbrake comes in. I think I've made my point. So here is the hydro kit that we're going to be installing. We got Z32 calipers, we got the Chase Bays hidden hydro, and then we got the Chase Bays hydro line kit. There's not really much to talk about, so we're just going to start installing it and I'll show you after. I ran into some problems with the brake lines. That's how they want you to do it with the bulkhead fittings. But the car in the picture is not an S14, and that's kind of like right where the frame rails and stuff are. And I didn't want to just go drilling holes in my car not knowing where they were going to come out. So what I decided to do instead was to route the line through the old handbrake cable hole. I'll seal it up with sound deadening, but this is how I did it. I wrapped it around like that because if I just went straight down, it was too tight and it kind of would have kinked the line. So I figured that was the best way to do it. And then I just zip tied it up in the old handbrake cable holders or whatever. And then I just tucked it up on top of the diff, and it's just sitting right there waiting to be connected to the caliper, which leads us into our next problem. I already put the wheel back on. I'm not going to take it back off, but the fitting was hitting the coilover. So I guess what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to try getting this fitting in a 90, and that should be good. And then I'll just get a straight right there to connect this to the lines that I have waiting to be connected. The last thing is I just replaced the wheel bearing on the other side, so I had all that stuff apart, took the dust shield off. On this side, the dust shield is still on. I did take the caliper and rotor off and pulled all the old handbrake cable stuff off, or drum brakes I should say. It's kind of a lot of work to get that dust shield off. You can pull the hub off while leaving the axle in. I've never done it that way, but I'm gonna do it that way. I'm gonna give it a try this time. I was gonna leave it on for now and deal with it next time I had to take the axle out or the hub off, but now that time has come. But I'm gonna do that off camera. This is how I trimmed out my center console. The smart thing to do would have been to get another center console to use for mock-up and make sure I only trim what I needed to, but this came out pretty good. Unfortunately, we can't test the handbrake out because the car's not driving, but when we do drive it, we will test it, and I know that this is gonna work great. It feels good, even though it's not hooked up, but you would never know that there is a hydro in this. It's supposed to actually be turned more that way, but when you drill the holes and then actually go to put it on, it moves a little bit no matter how careful you are. Part of that is I drilled the holes with the sound deadening in, and I had to actually take a chisel, and it came off nicely, but I didn't want to do that, so I didn't do it at first, and that's partially why. So if you got an S14 and you're going to do this, you got to take the sound deadening off. Pretty cool. I want to give a quick shout out to Breakbeat for making this sick cup holder, and it's a phone holder. No more having to worry about your Mountain Dew flipping completely upside down and filling your cup holder / ashtray with soda because your KAT makes so much goddamn torque and hits so fucking hard. But there's a lot of people who make 3D printed cup holders, and this one is by far the best one. My interior is really clean. It's in good condition, so the fact that it is not very noticeable is awesome. So that is the GKTECH hidden handbrake. Earlier in the video I accidentally called it Chase Bays, but no, it's GKTECH. This is actually probably cheaper than doing like a big pullback style. If you want to see me test out this handbrake in the future, go ahead and subscribe. Like if you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.